Over the years, the number of computing resources have grown rapidly, and the volume of structured and unstructured data continues to increase at an even higher velocity. But despite all this growth, IT staffing has not been able to keep up. A recent study revealed that there are almost 10 times more U.S. computing jobs open than there are students who graduated with computer science degrees. Even though the need for IT staff continues to grow, finding individuals with the right skill set has become harder than ever. This IT resources gap is one of the more serious challenges the IT industry is facing. In turn, organizations need to accommodate change through automation. One individual who understands the benefits of automation and has made a career of finding business value in data is Peter McDonald. Peter McDonald is a senior IT architect at one of the largest biotech companies in the world. He began as a consultant specializing in data warehousing, business intelligence, and analytics. In his current role, Peter handles Informatica development as well as enterprise IT automation within his organization. Throughout this presentation, Peter will discuss his IT automation story from the unique challenges of data warehousing to overcoming the boundaries of traditional data management solutions.
Good afternoon, everybody. We've been using PowerCenter since before I was there. We use it in several large data warehouses. We have our commercial, our financial. We've also used it in a bunch of our clinical areas to manage our data. We've created variants of data warehouses with those. Why? The complexity of transformations. When you're taking data from multiple different types of systems, you want to put it together, you want to normalize it out to be able to report on it. For us, PowerCenter has been the biggest one for doing that. So what do we have? Originally, our original process we created for our financial data warehouse, we had an MDM extract, we had a PowerCenter workflows, and we had PowerCenter executing our database routines also. The final part of that was a series of Hyperion cubes that were getting built. We didn't control all of those in an automated fashion. We were literally running each thing manually. Log into one server, execute the job, log into another server, execute all the PowerCenter workflows, because we were using shell scripts. So those are the things we were trying to solve when we went to looking for an automation solution. The automation solution had to fulfill those requirements. It had to be able to work across multiple OSs. It needed to be able to plug and play into what we currently had, right? We had existing shell scripts. The other reason for automation was to reduce the idle time, right? Somebody would execute the first job and, oh, wait a minute, it finished. Go get the next job. When we did that, we were able to think about unifying silos. So what did we end up with? Advanced Systems Active Batch. We've had that tool in place since 2006, and it's been growing in and around our company since then. I'm fully the evangelist for it because it has made my life simple. That financial data warehouse I'm talking about, I'm really the only guy that supports it. So for me to be able to do all of the maintenance on it, scheduling on it, I needed something to help out with it. So sort of 4 phases we've thought about it the way when we were looking at this. First thing was just to get it out there and get it working so we didn't have to think about it so much. You know, the manual process could take up to 12 hours because of the lag between somebody waking up to run a job, run a process. We ran all the existing shell scripts, we plugged it all in, managed to reduce it down to about an 8-hour runtime. Now, those 8 hours, you know, I could kick it off at 9:30 at night. The data processing would be done about 6 in the morning East Coast time, and then there was the cubes that had to be built. Now, our European affiliates were looking for that data to be sooner, but that's what we could get it. Instead of getting it at noontime, they were getting it, 10 o'clock in the morning their time. Helped them a lot, but it still wasn't good enough. So the next thing to do was to optimize. Now, as you see here in the center bar, our original plans were just this straight serial column. Job 1, job 2, job 3, job 4. Didn't have a great way of doing it. We didn't know what we were doing with it. We were just trying to get the job done so we didn't have to babysit it. So we did some of the optimization on it. What it allowed us to see through this automation process was I could parallelize jobs that I can't always do. whether it was database routines that I wanted to execute, as well as I had some workflows going from PowerCenter. What it allowed, we see those pieces, broke them down into slightly smaller components. We still kept big workflows together with doing certain types of work for us, but as we broke them out into individual components, we were able to say, hey, move these things out, parallelize them, and we gained and saved time. Through doing that process, we reduced it down to 4 hours. So what happened there now is our European affiliates started getting our nightly run during our close cycle. They were getting their data by 8, 9 a.m. That made them really happy. And internally, in the US side, we were able to do multiple runs a day, because at 4 hours, we could run one at overnight, and we could run one at sort of noontime. And if we had to do an emergency run because they pulled in a new data set in our finance, we'd pull that through. We could run it at any time ad hoc. Part of the optimization process was getting out of using the shell scripts. Now, quick question here. Who here really likes writing Unix shell scripts? Okay, those of you that put your hands up, I'm sorry, you're lying. Because how long do they take to debug? When you have a problem, you have, the backslash versus a forward slash, and you're looking at it for days. One of the things we did is we moved all that code over, so we could see it right inside of Active Batch. I didn't have to log into every single different server I had. I had 5 servers that we were running this data across. Now I had this one environment I could look at it. So that's what the automation did for us, is it centralized the look across all these servers without having to be an expert in Unix or Windows. So when you're out there looking at it, that's the something you want to pay attention to. It reduces development time. As we continued to grow the environment, we ran into a huge technical problem. Our Hyperion cubes, one of our servers decided to act up. It was a weird bug. And so trying to figure out what was happening, we were getting this long delay of knowing there was a problem, which pushed us back to not being able to support our users on a timely basis. Because we weren't going to have somebody staying up all night watching it. The team was 3 people, right? Hyperion guy, myself, and our manager. One of us wasn't going to be up during every night of the close over the 10-day window. So we were finding out first thing in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning, oh wait, this failed. Go fix it, rerun it, get it out there. So we turned on the alerting feature. Now, we also had to bring on somebody offshore while we figured out how the alerting worked for us. And the offshore team, they would watch it overnight because that was what we were paying them to do, but even they wouldn't respond. And they'd send us a phone call or an email or text, and we'd wake up and do it, but it took us at least an hour to respond. We turned on the alerting, our response time went down to about 5 minutes. It was a huge difference for us. Our users loved it, they were yelling at us, and they were like, oh, wait a minute, you fixed the problem. Other things that help with this is finance. It's SOX controlled. Some of you, we're healthcare, we also have GXP. When things fail, you need to report and understand why it failed. So, we had a good reporting from the tool that allowed us to go, hey, here's all our failures we had for the month. And we could go out and describe and say, hey, here's what we did to troubleshoot the problem, this is what caused the problem, and we had a resolution for it. So it made our audit cycles much easier. The other thing we decided to do is, you need to do it through an SDLC. Now, people don't think of SDLC for your automation, but what it allowed us to do was do different test scenarios. So we weren't affecting our production environment. We'd run through builds, test different types of codes, different configurations, do some optimization, continuing to optimize. As we did those, they really, we really started to tune how our system ran. We talked about the scripting, right? Okay, now I have it all in Active Batch. Well, now we completely removed it. So in our automation now, we removed all the scripting. I literally have almost no scripting except for the languages that I have to do it for. Hyperion uses Maxell. Everybody's done PMCMD commands. Because of the integrations that they now have, I don't do that. When I create a job to run a workflow in PowerCenter, I put in the folder and I put in the workflow. Click run, it runs. So that has made our development time for creating new processes, new data sets, a lot faster. Cost, time, turnaround, right? Those are the things you're trying to do. The scripting takes more time. We've talked a little bit about it. The scripting piece, if you don't have people that are expertise in it, okay, most of you are fairly senior people here, you're pretty good at it, you can do it in a reasonable amount of time. Who's had a junior programmer write good script the first time they tried it? When they implemented, in this case, these library functions, they built in native functionality for various pieces of software, whether it's Windows, whether it's database, Informatica. They built a connector. So it became a very simple process of, as you can see here, session logs, folder, workflow. I can get more information now quickly. Now, one of the other things that helped with is just our general troubleshooting. How hard is it sometimes to figure out what step failed? Okay, you go into the monitor tool, you go pick up the log, and then you're able to do that. With an automation tool, we get the notification, we know exactly which thing failed right away. We don't have to go figure it out. We don't have to go figure out which server we need to be on. The whole automation told us that. So that was one of the big takeaways for us, was like, oh, wait a minute, we just made our lives easier paying attention to this stuff. So we continue to tune and continue to optimize. Now, one of the things we were able to do is, look, PowerCenter does a great job. It'll run database routines, right? We had ETL, but it added steps to creation of those processes. Well, we were able to take those out of PowerCenter and make direct calls to our database. All right. The database call now, I'm doing my stored procedures, I'm doing my materialized view refreshes. My stored procedures of rebuilding my tables for my data warehouse. It's a simple, direct call. I save the communication steps, and again, I now have visibility to what is the database server doing. Those things there, again, small team. Right now, my team's one. I have nobody else. When there's a problem, I have to be able to get to it quickly. We also integrated into the Hyperion cubes. Anybody here, any of your companies use Hyperion? So we've built and took these massive scripts that we had for building a cube. There's 7, 8, 9 data steps to do it. They actually took the individual steps, the team that supports that, and made them individual sessions. Same thing for our PowerCenter. We broke up some of our routines so we could do more in parallel but have better visibility. Again, taking these massive workflows that we're doing all these things with, breaking them down into smaller, more manageable components. We get the individual logs and pay attention to which one's running. So we knocked it down to 2 hours. Well, 2 hours, now I'm getting 4 or 5 runs a day for our finance department. Run the overnight run, the main data load runs, and then throughout the day as they make updates to the finance. Now they were getting it, and then, trust me, the whole time they were doing this, they wanted it more often. So now we were down to sort of 4 runs a day. So overnight, 9 a.m., 12, and 3 p.m. And occasionally, if we needed to, run one at 6, because it only took 2 hours. So as we continued to build on this stuff, okay, we took it out and we even moved it further. Now, this is an example of one of the really more complex pieces we have. Okay, this whole run now takes about 45 minutes. And the reason I'm calling that out is because of the automation, it allowed us to spread it out in parallel. We regularly will see the problems much faster, but the runtime is fast enough that we run every 2 hours during our close cycle now. The user base loves it. The finance department, they're in intense close, quarter close, financial closes. If you support those departments, you know what it's like. They want their data as soon as they can all the time. What you see there with it is I have different logical sets of flows, which I couldn't have done before, right? I have a master, that first process there is my master data. It gets set up, and if you're looking at the icon, it's actually a sub-job that I pre-package for all different routines. And that process actually does several different things. It represents that MDM data out to our reporting tools that people use for prompting. And then it kicks off a series of other workflows, database routines that are all here. They're all tied together. And as soon as one of them completes, it kicks off the next one that is done. But there's a series of constraints out there. Those constraints say, hey, don't run this job until these 3 jobs that we're running in parallel finish. Again, that's some of the stuff you really need to think about when you're looking at the automation solution. It really reduced the time of development, our ability to see our data when our problems were. Right? 45 minutes. The big other thing is we're not processing 3 to 4 times as much data. Originally it was around 20 to 25 million rows in that 6.5 to 8 hour window that we ran every night. Now I run about 80 million rows, closer to 90 million towards the end of the year because it's about a 3-year window we run. Those 90 million rows, that's it, 45 minutes. That gives out 2 major cubes. Now there was other tuning we had to do, and we, obviously it's 10 years newer, we're on newer hardware. That helped, but a lot of it was the ability to see the problems as they were occurring. And when we were able to troubleshoot them, retune code, fix workflows, fix job steps, put more things in parallel, allowed more work to occur. So what do you really need to know for automation, right? If you find the right solution, okay, it's going to leverage your power center piece that you have now, make it much bigger, okay? Make it much more valuable because you're doing the work you need to do when you need to do it, as opposed to having to pre-plan these big run cycles. It reduced the complexity. As much as that job back 3 slides ago looks like it's complex, it's not truthfully, because I see everything going on. It's all out there in different places. Okay? When I go around my company and my other parts of my IT as I've been growing this out there, our database team. Anybody here work with your database teams closely? Who's got hundreds of databases? Most of you, right? They went with this to use and just manage their RMAN. So we're in an Oracle shop. They were doing all their RMAN backups. We had over 100 database servers. Even when we went to Exadata, the first thing they went and installed was the automation tool because it made their life so much better. They were able to manage a lot more volume in a lot fewer places because it gave you that visual of, hey, here's everything that's going on in my system, in my environment. We're making do with less resources as IT people. But each area is only small groups that are very focused on clinical or commercial or otherwise. That's it. When I do projects, I get a couple of developers, we crank through it, and then we offsite the development gets done, and we're able to automate it. I don't have to keep somebody on board paying attention to this all the time. We don't have to have that 24/7 monitoring. End to end. I suspect almost all of you, even though you're here as an Informatica, have other data sets that are coming in, right? From other tools that you need to execute those data sets against. We've grown it. We have data quality. We have MDM for Informatica. They don't necessarily have a tight integration, but they all have script level. So in our case, for our automation, a lot of the script level stuff you can do. If anybody has a software that can run script level and your automation tool can run it from the OS level, you've just made your life easier. So for some of our tools, some of our groups where I've grown it out to, they have FTP processes, all these SaaS applications that are out there, and you're receiving data files from your partners. Well, they've been able to automate it and it just pulls in those files as part of the process, gets onboarded in site, kicks off the Power Center workflows that you process that data, pulls it through, and now they're consuming it, as opposed to having to try to script it all out to have this massive Unix shell script, okay, that does all the steps that you don't see when it fails. And as you saw from the timings we proved, we made a value for ourselves, for the business, okay? That timing, that speed, the ability to turn that around. One of the other values we were able to do is we actually got IT out of the business of choosing when we ran the stuff. So we actually had one of the business analysts that supported the finance department. They did all the work of the scheduling. We didn't. The interface is that usable. So again, looking at it, you want your interface to be usable by others, right? They want to own it. So we were able to get them to own it a lot better because now they could do it. And when there was those ad hoc, one-off, I need to run it, they called the BA, he worked for them, done. We didn't have to be involved. Again, saving our time and our effort for doing other things, new development, future stuff. As you can see here, PowerCenter isn't going away. We have more and more data, we have more sources. I'm working with other groups in our company to prove how they process their flow. So we're leveraging PowerCenter. We're going to leverage MDM, data quality. Okay, we're also big Salesforce, and we're using a lot of our integrations for the Informatica Cloud. We're automating all of that. So it's all one big flow for each area. We've also used it for doing some one-off short-term stuff, the automation, that I needed to run this system for 3 months. I don't need any more than that. I just need to run it and just need it to continue running. Great. Set it up, it runs. The 3 months are over, you shut it down. No, didn't cost anything, didn't change anything. The automation piece, I keep growing it out there. We've hit some, we've been focused on spending other money, but we were able to grow it. So, I have about 4 major areas now that are leveraging the tool and running the data through this tool. Some of them are very simple. Most of them aren't as complex as what we have here, but we have other areas that I see are going to be as complex, if not more so.